Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners. This is Marco Magalhaes talking for you from here, Toronto, Canada. And as you can see, I'm not Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. Dr. Vanessa Anceloni is away during this week. I know she's having a very important experience down in Brazil, helping so many others. And I'm here as a host of the show today, as we were last week. And I'm very, very happy not only to be here, but also to have our friend Adriano Barbo from the Mount Vernon Spiritist Center with us today. But before we start, let us just go to the Spirit's book, and we're going to read an inspiring message for all of you that are connected with us today. We're going to go to question number 967, where Allan Kardec asks the spirits, what does the happiness of good spirits consist of? And the spirits answer, in knowing all things, in feeling no hatred, jealousy, envy, ambition, or any of the passions that make people unhappy. The love that unites them is a source of supreme happiness. They do not experience the needs, sufferings, or anxieties of material life. They are happy with the good they do. Moreover, the happiness of spirits is also in proportion to their progress. Actually, only the pure spirits enjoy supreme happiness. However, this does not mean that the others are unhappy. Between the evil ones and the perfected ones, there is an infinity of gradations, in which enjoyments are proportioned to their moral state. Those who are ready, sufficiently advanced, understand the happiness of those who have reached that state before them, and they aspire to it. But it is for them a reason for emulation, not jealousy. They know that it depends on them themselves to reach it, and they labor to do that. But with the calmness of a pure conscience, they are happy in no longer having to suffer what is endured by evil spirits. So, dear listeners, with these words, inspiring happiness to all of us, do not seek hatred or jealousy, but to seek charity and good. We're going to start our show today, and we're going to be talking to you about a very interesting question. But what is it to be a spiritist? Even us as spiritists sometimes have difficulties answering that question. And as you see today in our discussion, there are many reasons why, and it's much simpler than everyone thinks. Now, for those who don't even understand what spiritism is, it may be even more complicated. But why for some, it is so hard to answer, but at the same time so simple to understand. And that's why we're going to talk about this today. And how can Spiritism help you and help all of us in understanding more about who we are and what can we do to grow and to be a better person? So this is what we're going to talk about today. And before we go on now, I would like to introduce our guest today, Adriano Barbo. Adriano, Mount Vernon Spirit Center, has been working tirelessly in the Spiritism for many years, and I would like to invite him to say hi to us at this moment. Hello, Adriano. How are you?
Hello, Marco, and everyone. Good morning for everyone. I'm very honored to be in the Kardec Radio today. I'm very happy indeed the great opportunity for us to share our experiences on Spiritism. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Adriano, for being with us today. And the question today is, what is it to be a spiritist? And I would start by sharing with you a little bit of my experience in spiritism, because I know some of you may find it very relating to your own experiences. So early on, I used to have a few friends around me that no matter what happened to them, they would seem or feel like everything was good, calm. They were very understanding of everything. Even in the hard times coming, they would have a smile to share, and they would be happy to endure losses, to endure challenges. And that all always intrigued me because I couldn't find that same strength inside myself. My faith was very shaky. And looking around all those people, I started to question myself. What is it that they can actually go through? And through searching, I've realized that they were all spiritists. And they were all raised in spiritist families. And then, after knowing that, the first question is, well, so what should I do? And then I'm going to ask Adriano now. Adriano, can you share with us a little bit of your story inside spiritism?
I think everyone that came, I'm almost everyone except those one that was born spiritist. They have previous stories about themselves, how they, came to spiritism. You have your story that is so great. But I think everyone has its different stories. My story, maybe it was started when I was a very little kid. I the story of the world itself, the creation about God, it bothered me a lot since I was a kid. I didn't understand the creation itself. I didn't understand God, and I could say that I was depressed by that. I couldn't understand it. My mom couldn't explain me the Bible that my mom used to read for me. It didn't make any sense on my infants. I was about maybe 7 or 8 years old. And I used to cry a lot when I was a kid. Because of that, I couldn't understand it. And my only escape was to cry. I used to cry maybe more than a day. My mom was very worried about me. I was crying and crying because I thought with myself, maybe if God didn't exist, who created me? If the world didn't exist, it means that I didn't exist at all, too. And then those questions used to bother me so much when I was a kid. It stressed me. When I grew up, all those things was like being dormant in my unconscious. Other things came on, other interests, job, life itself. And for a while, I focused myself on the road, trying to survive, job, studying, new friends. But in a way, I wasn't happy at all, because I didn't understand even when I grew up. And when I came to United States, I happened to meet a friend that was a spiritist, and he told me about spiritism, about the Spiritist Center. And I volunteered myself to go with him to the Spiritist Center to get to know Spiritism or the Spiritist Center that he talked so much about it. And when I got to the Spiritist Center, I had a nice experience the first day. And he gave me the Spirit's book. I think was the greatest ever that I ever received in my life. Because the Spirit's book, it changed my life forever. It was all those anguish, those distress, those doubts that I had when I was a kid and growing up was all like clarifying in the Spirit's book. Every question, every answer, it was like I told myself, my God, all this was here in the book, was in Spiritism. And my life was crying for it. And it was like releasing all my, frustration of my life was releasing through getting to know the question. And I tell you, I don't know how many times I cried when I was reading the Spirit's book for the first time. I used to go to bed and start reading the Spirit's book or going on the questions and answers, and then sometimes I just stop and cry of happiness. I cry and so grateful to, to understand it, and I couldn't stop reading it. Everywhere that I go, I got the Spirit's book with me. To the job, to my, anywhere. It was so great. It was something that really made difference in my life. And the first times that I got to the Spiritist Center and hear about the Spiritists, I told myself, you know what? My life won't be the same forever. And I tell you, for me, in a few years, I'll be done things that I never, ever imagined to do because of Spiritism. And it did happen because I believed so much in it. That was a little bit of my experience getting into it.
Thank you very much, Adriano. It is really a very inspiring story for all of us, and I'm sure not only me, but a lot of people out there can actually relate a lot to that story on their own stories, because certainly for me and for a lot of people that I know, the stories were very similar, and I was touched. And after I started reading, just like you said, a lot of things came back into my mind, and all of a sudden there was this snap point that I said, wait a minute, this is the answer. This is what I always wanted to know, right?
Yeah.
And
it's really,
so.
Yeah. Go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So it's interesting too, because if we go to Chapter 17, the Gospel According to Spiritism, Allan Kardec writes about what is it to be a moral person and what is it to be a good spiritist. And one of the things we hear a lot is something like, well, Spiritism is all about spirits and about this manifestations, and you need this high level of education. There's a lot of misconceptions flying out there that doesn't really mean anything if you really understand what the spirit is. Is that right, Adriano?
Yeah, it's very right. Yeah, I think that's the reason Kardec put the two topics following, one another, because he put the good person and the moral person first, and then the spiritist, because as we go into read it, they are basically the same, but he adds something more in the second topic, which is to be a spiritist, emphasizing this fact that, not only, seeing or believing in spiritual manifestations and, of any natural, supernatural phenomena that comes out, of the psychic powers or that we have to communicate with the spirits, that it means that we are spiritists. And there's so misunderstanding out there, even among some spiritists that really don't dedicate themselves to study, to comprehend spiritism.
That's right.
Feel after many years on going to the spiritist centers, they are still embarrassed on the situation. They don't really have a clear, understanding of it. And then it's, in a way, people, they prevent themselves to get the real benefits that comes from teaching spiritism.
That's right.
Position.
Yeah. So also we're gonna go on a little break now. But before we go on a break, I just want to read, I think, one of the most referenced and cited passages from this chapter in the Gospel that says that true spiritists are recognized by their moral transformation and the efforts they make to overcome their evil inclination. So we're going to discuss that in a few minutes. And Adriano, just hold on there. We're going to be with you in a short couple minutes. We're just going to go on a break, and we'll come back with you, my listeners, talking about what is it to be a spiritist and what are the implications of that. So just hold on there for a second, and we'll be back with you.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Getting to the Light, Spiritist Therapy for Discarnate Spirits is a small book that offers guidance to Spiritist practitioners and Spiritist counselors. Purchase your copy at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on a previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Help prevent suicide by reading and sharing these books with others. 2 great books are available to help in this Kardec Radio campaign to prevent suicide. Suicide, All You Need to Know, by the international Spiritist speaker Richard Simonetti. You can buy your copy at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com. Also, Memoirs of a Suicide by the medium Yvonne Pereda. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Kardec Radio now offers more programs during the week and weekends. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can follow the beautiful program God at Home with Francisca Kranz and the British Spiritist community. They will brighten your days by doing a God at Home meeting wherever you are in the world, while teaching you how to do the same in your own home with your family and friends. Every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will hear incredibly inspirational Spiritist talks directly broadcasted by Spiritist Network. There will be true educational moments to carry out to immortality. Every Saturday, live interviews, Bridging Health and Spiritism with the host Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. You may ask questions to the interviewed guests by calling 858-769-4705. And every Sunday, tune in to Spiritist Awareness at Kardec Radio. You will hear a series of segments on a diversity of Spiritist topics. Kardec will broadcast the Spiritist Moment with Kirsten DeMello, the reading of the Spiritist book by John DeRosa and Steve Shepard, Spiritism in Your Life with Drs. Marco and Joyce Magalhães, Spiritism and the Gospel with Luis Sergio Marotta, Spiritist Education for Youth and Children with Bernadette Leal, Spiritist Music with James Marotta, Neuroscience and Spiritism with Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, and many more segments coming soon. Enjoy it all and nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listeners, here we are back with you at Kardec Radio, directly from Toronto, Canada today with me, Marco Magalhães, and from New York with Adriano Barbo from the Mount Vernon Spiritist Center in Mount Vernon, New York. And before we went into the break, we were talking about this highly referenced passage that says, true Spiritists are recognized by their moral transformations and the efforts they make to overcome their evil inclinations. So, in reality, what Allan Kardec is trying to tell us, and the Spirits at this point, is that it is understandable that we are not perfect. We all know that, and we will be perfect one day, but we're not going to be perfect today. But we can make a huge effort to do so as soon as possible. And we should not use that as an excuse and just say, well, I have more experiences, I'll do it on my own. That's not what they're saying. What they're saying is that we're recognized by the efforts. So it gives us an idea of an action instead of inaction. It means that we had to do something. Isn't that right, Adriana?
Yeah, it is right. Yeah. When I came to Spiritism, went to the Spiritist centers, the first months I used, listen to the lectures, the talks, and talk to the folks in the Spiritist centers. And there were many of that had, 10, 20 years in Spiritism, 15 years in Spiritism, and I was so amazed to get to know them. I told myself, oh my God, you have 15 years in Spiritism.
Mm-hmm.
And they usually comment, if he says or she says, many of them says, I don't consider myself Spiritist yet because I have so, much to learn still. And there was quite a while who would hear that. And I told myself, oh my God, what is it to be a Spiritist that way? A person has 15 years studying all those books, listening to these lectures, and they tell themselves they are not fully Spiritist yet. And, I didn't understand that. I tell you, I was so amazed to hear that because a few months on Spiritist, I was already considering myself a Spiritist. But through the years studying this, and that this question, comes to clarify all of this because it's not a matter of many years you getting to Spiritism that make you a Spiritist through, in essence.
Mm-hmm.
But, the efforts that a person does to, transform himself for a better person, that happens to be, I know many people through, just a couple of months, they start a real transformation themselves. And through some months, you clearly see that a person is a different one for the better. And then I think that person, despite the fact that he or she has so little time in Spiritism, getting to know the knowledge, of Spiritism, he can be or she can be considered a Spiritist because he or she really, are or is in this classification or this reference that Kardec makes that a person, is that one that makes a real effort for the transformation. But,
and that's important. Yeah.
Requires a lot. It's not just, it's a start. It's a start for everyone. There's a long process to get to many degrees of it, many understanding, because it requires pride, and nobody's yet perfect.
That's correct, and I think you put it in a very nice way because there are many steps. It's like we're going through another type of school where we learn lessons, we get tested for it, and we have to move on, learning new ideas, new concepts, transforming ourselves. And I like to bring Paul's letters. Paul wrote to the Thessalonians that we are living letters of Christ, which means that I think it's touching, and it really relates to that, because we really have to be what we believe in. So it's not that we have to say things or act like we know things, but we really have to put in action what we learn. And I think that's one of the things we learn in Spiritism, which really certainly changed the way I saw things, that it's not only about going to place and showing your face and being friendly to others, but also making all the efforts that are necessary to change. Is that right, Adriana?
Yeah, is that right? And that's, I think, one of the reasons people say, even though they are, a long time in Spiritism, they say that they are not yet a Spiritist because they need to know more. But in reality, because they are so long time Spiritists, they know the truth that to be a real, Spiritist is not only about the knowledge of the principle of Spirit, that it's so important. And and so valid that we really need to know it, but we got to go a step further, that is to prize it. And then when we say to ourselves, or we know all the knowledge of spirit, and then say to ourselves that we are truly spiritist, and then that comes a responsibility, at least for the mind and for the soul, that's really true to himself or to herself. It's really honest to him or herself. Because after you say, I'm a spiritist, it means that you commit yourself to be a spiritist in pricing it. Even though you're not perfect, you want to be, doing all right all the time, but you truly are putting your efforts on it. And I see many people, and I clearly see that they're putting the excuse to say not a spiritist yet because of the knowledge, but in reality, they are afraid of assuming and getting this responsibility to a hand and say, I'm a spiritist and I got to get in action for it. And then it happens that I see many people from, decades, they are the same people as they were, 10, 20 years ago, but it's steps. But I think that, we got to reflect really, and when we outspoke these words for ourselves and for people. Why I'm saying that, and
I think it's very good that you pointed out that it is a barrier sometimes for some people coming first time into a spiritist center. They carry this pressure of being perfect, of seeing and reading all that. It's like, oh God, I can't do this because it's just overwhelming to understand how much I have to learn and how much I have to perfect myself. And there's so much out there that the spirits are telling me, but it's really not about achieving perfection the first day as a spiritist, but rather understanding the process, right? As you said really well.
Yes, it's a whole process on it to the price and really get in sync with our daily lives. I'm sure it requires many years. I could tell myself, and I think it as well depends a lot on the experiences of the person before getting to know spiritists. Because there are many people they are truly in trouble of their whole life in many situations, and then when they got to spiritism, they are already committed a lot to the issue, many difficult situations that will require them a lot of efforts to get, transformed. And there are others, they are not so much, in that situation. They are, more, free of so many I would say bad compromises of their lives, and then they are more, in a way, it's easier for them at least to see the future in a easier way. And then I think it depends a lot. In my situation, I can't say myself that wasn't previous too bad situations, and I would tell to myself I was happy even before spiritism. And I got to spiritism. I had a thought or view of my future years or decades that will be much better because I didn't see myself so much bad things. But indeed, after the years, spiritism, it taught me to a journey into myself and discover a lot of things that I didn't know existed. There are too much bad things, too much vices that I wouldn't recognize as vices. And it took more time to me to overcome things than I ever thought. I underestimated myself in that situation.
Yeah. Knowing yourself is always difficult.
Yeah. And after many years, I thought, oh my God, I thought I would be much better now than I really are now. I think that in my situation, it went that way, and I see for many people, and And as well, I see through, I have 11 years that I got to know Spiritism. That depends a lot on how much effort a person puts, or to overcome their tendencies to study Spiritism. Because Kardec says it's the effort that we put in it. But it's not only like I put effort today and then I leave it for the next month again.
That's
and
right.
I think Kardec gave a nice lesson for us through Spiritism, because he had a discipline on publishing the books. We see the questions and the answers. They have a very disciplined way to come. They has a methodology on it. He didn't overlap any question and answer. And in a way, we see there is a discipline on the work of Kardec. He didn't start a question here, and then he later on come back to the same question. That he didn't. He had a clear road to follow, and he followed it very steady. And that's, I think, that we should go on it, because I see that sometimes we start a plan according, for our transformation, and then tomorrow we stop. And many months later, we think about it again, and then we have an effort to start it again. And in that way, there's no discipline on it. Or studying the Spiritism. Right. We start studying it, and then we stop it, and then we come back, we go here and there, and there's no clear, plan for us. And as I think that we should think about it. For years, I think we're going to learn that we should discipline ourselves in getting to know Spiritism and getting to transform ourselves within the knowledge that Spiritism brings to us.
Yeah, that's amazing, Adriano. And again, thank you very much for sharing that. And I'm going to share a little bit of my own story to you, which I think you probably relate well to it. Although knowing Spiritism since young ages, through many, many different experiences, I was only able to overcome my difficulties in actually learning and studying and actually being a Spiritist when I moved to New York, and I had a chance to meet Adriano. And so most of you don't know this part of the story, but after knowing Adriano at Mount Vernon Spiritist Center, I started my own journey into being a Spiritist. And I think it's a long journey, so I'm in the very baby steps of it yet, but it's just to show how experiences like knowing other people and seeing what is it to be a Spiritist changes ourselves too. Because I was so inspired not only by Adriano's story and all the knowledge and all the people around Mount Vernon Spiritist Center, but just having this rationalized faith, which was actually the most important part of my own transformation. And we're going to come back with more about Adriano and me and Spiritism and what is it to be a Spiritist. And if you have any questions, please, you can go to our chat and type your questions there, and I'll be happy to answer them. Adriano and Marcos de Clay, our friend from Toronto, is also online. So we all can help you, and we're going to come back after a short break with more on what is it to be a Spiritist.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, Andre Luiz emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want Spiritist books for your children? At Eddie Save America, you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book, Our Father, in which the Spirit May through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelison Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.eddiesaveamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone is the live web study meeting and educational program of the United States Spiritist Council. This year, in commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Spiritism for Everyone program will present an in-depth study of this remarkable book. Join us every Wednesday evening through the web from any computer or mobile device, no matter where you are in the U.S. Spiritism for Everyone is free, open to all, and requires no registration. For more information, go to www.spiritist.us.
And now we return to our program.
Hello, dear listeners. We are here with you live this morning from Toronto, Canada, talking about a very interesting question. That is, what is it to be a spiritist? Especially for those who never heard about Spiritism, never heard about Allan Kardec, and are logging in today or listening to this talk show and saying, well, yeah, I want to know what is it to be a spiritist. And I'll tell you right away, being a spiritist is not anything different from anyone else, other than the fact that we're rationalizing our thoughts and our faith, understanding everything from a different perspective, and putting a lot of effort to try to be better. Or in other words, be the leading letter. Be the one that really carries the message by our actions, not by what we say, but really by what we do. And that's what we've been taught for so many years. And just a short list of things that are probably burning questions inside the mind of so many people right now. Spiritism is not about spirits only. Spiritism are part of a normal existence where people with incarnate bodies or discarnate bodies can relate to each other, can talk, can communicate. We all live together as creatures of God. So it's something very normal to us to understand that. So we're not really about spiritual phenomena, but rather about the principles that the Spiritist brings to us. So it's not all about reincarnation, but also understanding divine justice. Because a lot of people will say, well, Spiritism is all about reincarnation. No, Spiritism understands reincarnation as part of the divine justice, as part of the laws that God created to us that allow us to grow and be better, and not only about reincarnation. So Spiritism is about cures. Well, no, Spiritism is not about phenomenal physical cures, but rather a road to transformation that will lead to eternal cure, which is much more than actually just the physical body. And Adriano, now after this short summary of things about being a spiritist, I want to ask you something, because you said you've been 11 years since you had the first contact with Spiritism. And throughout 11 years, not only you've helped many people along the way and you transformed yourself, or you're trying to, as all of us, as you mentioned, but you started or you founded a Spiritist Center, which nowadays helps so many others and bring help and understanding and lectures and studies for so many people. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Oh yes, I'll be happy to tell you something about it. Although it's just a brief summary what could, what happened to us here when we founded the Spiritist Center. But I think I always started the first day that I got in the Spiritist Center, in the first months, because as I told before, as I heard from many people, they wouldn't give speech or lectures because they didn't know enough, because they had so few years in Spiritism. And I told myself, I think in 3 or 4 years I could do a talk. I could be helping the Spiritist Center in many ways. Because I think 4 years, 3 years is so much time. I don't understand how many people get so long. I thought with myself at that time that, to get in action for doing something. And then I started going to the Spiritist Center. And after 2 years, I was doing a lot of things in the Spiritist Center. I was giving passes. I was helping the study groups. I was going 4 times in Spiritist, and not only for studying, but for helping in all the activity in the Spiritist centers. And then we were living like far away from the Spiritist Center, the group here.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Books of Andre Luis. Through the hands of the most prolific medium of all times, Chico Javier, the spirit doctor Andre Luis wrote a series of books that unveil the mechanisms of life and life after life. From the best-selling novel No Solar, Our Home, to And Life Goes On, the reader will find illumination for a fulfilled life on Earth as well as immortal happiness. Check the many titles available at the international distributor, EDI CEI of America. Their website is www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio. Traveling to another country? Immigrating elsewhere? Prepare yourself by reading the book Among Brothers of Other Lands, in which several loving and wise spirits wrote through the hands of Chico Xavier and Waldo Vieira, telling all of us the tips and hints of a successful transition to a new land. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Do you want Spiritist books for your children? At Odyssey of America, you'll find a collection of them, from the best-selling book Our Father, in which the Spirit Mei through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adailson Salles on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.odysseyofamerica.com.
And now we return to our program.
Hello, dear listeners. We had some technical difficulties here from our studio in Toronto, Canada. And we're back with you. And just before we lose our thoughts and our line of ideas that we're discussing, we're going to go back to Adriano. He was telling us how actually he got involved into creating a Spiritist Center. Not only he was introduced to Spiritism only 11 years ago, but he had the idea, and like Allan Kardec said, of pushing himself to not only learn more but help many others. Adriano, can you continue on that story?
Yeah, I'm sorry for losing you guys. As I was telling you, and then I was going to that spiritist, and it was like far away from our home. And I decided with friends to start a group study in my apartment, just a group study. And then we did that group study for about 2 years. And then we had, we got together and we discussed the possibility of opening just a small, very small spiritist center here in Mount Vernon that we could at least have one lecture every week with pastors and one day of the study group which we could study spiritism. And many of the people that we got together, they agreed to help us, although there were others that were, afraid some way. They couldn't agree with the situation. And but the majority, there were about 6 people, they agreed that we could open a very simple spiritist center, a very simple place in which we could study spiritism and have lectures and basic activity that a spiritist center has. And then we found a place that was in a bad situation, but we renovated. And then we started the spiritist center after 2 years of studying in my apartment with one lecture every week and one study every week. And after 7 years now we have 3 studies, group parenting, children, spiritist education for children and youth, and many other activities that we have after 7 years. Because after those 7 years, many people came to help us. I tell you, it was a very hard experience. It was not easy as I thought that would be. Because I was working in the Spiritist Center as a practitioner, in past giver and others activities, giving talks, helping the group studies. I wasn't really in administrating the Spiritist Center itself, getting involved in other, administration areas. And when I come to the Spiritist Center and I had to do that, I didn't know anything about it, about the administration, areas itself. And then I had to do that, deal with organization of the Spiritist itself, training people for doing the activities, because we had no many trained people, and start coming people, and then we needed more people to help, people for giving lectures, for giving passes, coordinating studies, and we didn't have none of those people, and then we had to train all of them. And I really had to put my hands on it.
That's right.
And for many years, I had to study a lot to make many coordinating studies with the people that had come. And after many years, and now we have so many helpers, so many practitioners in helping all the areas of the Spiritist Center. But all of them, most of them, started with us. They didn't come from other Spiritist Center already, like, putting quote here, done. They didn't. It is just a simple person going to the Spiritist Center, enjoying the talks, sometimes going to the to other activities, but not as a practitioner as themselves. And then we started here with them, and I always told them, we can do it. They said, I can't give pass, I can't pray, I can't coordinate studies. But it's you gotta faith and gotta study. That's all you need.
That's all you need.
And so many people, after just a few times, few years, they started working and helping, and it's so amazing now after just 7 years how many people they are already doing a lot of things within the Spiritist Center in so nice way. They go to other Spiritist Center to help people in other spiritist centers. They give talks on the spiritist center in both languages, in English, Portuguese, helping other events. But was another experience besides being only a spiritist itself, going to the spiritist center, taking, the lessons and applying it in my daily lives.
Yeah.
I had to do it, continuing to do it as much as I could, but I had to do as well, be a person in the spiritist center coordinating people, and I see that it starts to be more challenging because people are looking at you.
Yeah,
people
that's
are
correct.
in a way, they are looking forward in you. They expecting a lot from you, from that person. And many people misunderstand that the person in charge of the spiritist center, be a president or any other position, they are not perfect. They have their difficulties, they have their challenge, but many people don't understand that, and they think that you had to be acting perfect always. And it happens that people are disappointed with me a lot of the times because I'm not performing as they think that I would be performing. And it had so many surprises along the way.
That's right. And I think it's interesting what you say is that people expect us to be perfect, right? But it's quite evident that we're not. And I think Marcos D. Clay in the chat put up a very funny and a very realistic message is that it doesn't matter wearing a T-shirt saying that I'm a spiritist. You really have to put it from the inside out. And just to add on that, if we go to the parable of the sower, so it's very interesting because the last paragraph says, but he who receives the seed on good soil is the one who hears the word, who heeds it, and who produces a crop, rendering 100 or 60 or 30 of one. So what really they're trying to tell us here, Matthew in this passage, is that we need the good soil. We have to prepare ourselves. The work is there. There's so much to do. There's so much to do not only for us, but for so many other people. And it's really up to us. And Spiritism is here to help us understanding that. Isn't that so, Adriano?
Yeah, the way we have to prepare the soil for ourselves to really, the seeds to germinate, to grow. And I've been in Spiritism this time. I'm studying a lot. Then I start giving talks in many places. In many places. Then after so long, in that situation, talking, I see that I was required to testimony of what I had talked so much in the Spiritist Center. And in many passages in my life, being a Spiritist and being a Spiritist working in a Spiritist Center. I had a very simple example after I came to be a president of Spiritist Center, founding Spiritist with friends. I was in a very hardship in my life at that time, and I was sad, in a way. And in a day, I was just walking in the street in some way. Used to come in our spiritism, a very good person, but he had facing a very difficult time in his life. He has alcohol problems, depression, and I was trying a lot to help him, encourage him, telling him to have faith in his life, reading the gospel and so on. And then one of the meetings he came and he told to me, I saw you yesterday walking in the street, and you were so, in a way, I saw that you were so sad, walking slowly on the street. And I got home, he told me. I got home and I started thinking to myself, if Adrian, that he is the president of the Spiritist Center, he knows a lot about Spiritism, is in that way, it means that he made that no nothing about spirits, almost nothing, and I'm not working in a spiritist center. He in a way, he gave an excuse for himself because of why, he thought I was sad, and I have the right to be sad because Adrian said he's in charge of helping me. He found an excuse for himself. In that way, being a spiritist and a spiritist practitioner has a lot of weight in the person. And if the person is not really concerning on walking his talk, it will be, very challenging for him to be, inspiring people, helping people around, and it happens to happen a lot of frustration for himself along the way if we are not really open for that seed that you were mentioning before.
That's right. And I think we're going to go for another break, which is our final break now. And we have so much more to talk about. And I welcome everyone to type your questions in our chat that is available for you. And also, importantly, we're going to talk about a few more things. One is that nowadays, a lot of people come into a Spiritist Center because they want something spectacular, phenomenal, a cure. And we're going to talk about that because that's really not what is it to be a Spiritist, but rather a slow process of self-transformation. And also talk about some of the medical research out there by people like Alexander Moreira Almeida, which mentioned to us that we're mediums and spiritists are just as like as any other person and could even be less affected by some psychiatric disorders and things like this. So we're going to go into our final break, and we'll be back with Adriano and all of you in a few minutes.
We will return to our program after these messages. Want to learn more about the ins and outs of mediumship? The book, In the Realms of Mediumship, by the spirit doctor Andre Luiz through the medium Chico Xavier, analyzes the various aspects of mediumistic communication and mediumship. He also praises the efforts of mediums who are faithful to the spiritual mandate they received before they reincarnated, warning them about the risks of badly practiced exchanges between the two worlds. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
The Spiritist magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Study Spiritism online at eSpiritism. eSpiritism is an online tool to promote the study and practice of Spiritism while contributing to the preparation of Spiritist practitioners. For full access to courses, go to www.e-spiritism.org.
If you missed out on any previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Emmanuel's Novels. The reputable mentor, Emmanuel, wrote a 5-book series of Spiritist novels that can truly transform your life. Starting with 2,000 Years Ago, Emmanuel delights our minds with the true account of characters that are so similar to each of us. Discover yourself in Emmanuel's novels and live better. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com. And now we return to our program.
Hello, dear listeners. Here I am again, Marco Magalhães, with you and Kardec Radio. And this morning, It's a cold morning here for us in most of Northeast North America, but of course our hearts are in fire with love and wanting to spread the word of Spiritism through Kardec for all of you. And again, I'll bring up a few more ideas about Spiritists, and I think we can summarize a few things for you that are listening today that want to know more about what is it to be a Spiritist. And I can tell you, Spiritism is not about curing yourself, but rather contributing to one's own growth to achieve the real cure. It's not only about receiving, but rather sharing. It's not only to be good at the Spiritist Center and go there and receive your passes, but be good everywhere. Try to be a better person. Love one another. That's what Jesus told us to do so many times. And this is what we try to do very hard here as a Spiritist. It's not only about reading good books, but using the knowledge you read in those books to change yourself. So it's not about being different from others, but actually understanding who we are better so we can actually help so many others along the way. So these are another important topics on what is it to be a Spiritist. And also, I think it's important for us to go into some of the scientific understanding of being mediums and being Spiritists, since we're all mediums. That's how we understand it as a Spiritist. So it's interesting, Alexander Moreira Almeida wrote a couple papers, and one of them he showed that the mental health of 115 mediums, they had high social educational levels, they showed low prevalence of psychiatric disorders, and they're well adjusted socially compared to the general population. And just to show that, again, being mediums, during the dissociation process of being a medium is very healthy for you. And being a Spiritist, for sure, will help you achieving like a long-term spiritual and physical health one day. And now we're coming to the end of our show, and I know you have so many questions, and I'll be happy to try to answer as much as I can from your questions through our chat or through our email or through our website, www.kardecradio.com. You can go online and you can want to find much more information about this show and about many other topics. And now we're going to go back with Adriano. Adriano, it was a pleasure to have you here today. I know, and I can attest with my own physical eyes that I saw the beautiful work you guys do in Mount Vernon. And I can say that being a Spiritist today and working hard to learn and be better, I'm not saying that I am, but I'm saying is that in the last 4 or 5 years that I had a chance to really go and study and try to understand what is it to be a Spiritist, I've been through this fantastic journey of self-knowledge, of self-forgiveness, forgiving others, and including myself, and just simply trying to go by one rule, which is love God and love everyone. That's it. And I think that summarizes everything we have to say. What do you think about it, Adriano?
Yeah, pretty much it summarizes all we told. I think my final comments would be that, at least as I see for myself, and Spiritism is for everyone. It doesn't matter, if the person is illiterate or so well-minded in the scientific community. The more we know, it's better. But the class doesn't really matter. The Spirit is simple, and anyone can go and understand the Spiritism. And I think, I'm pretty sure, and it works for me, and for many people. Spiritism is inspiring. It gives joy for people and inspires them to overcome, all their bad tendencies. That's why I see Spiritists putting all the effort they have to overcome their bad tendencies. Not only because they see they will be better, because Spiritism inspire people for, facing all those challenges in life with, optimism. And I think spiritists should be very optimistic and inspiring, because the spiritism is very inspiring.
Thank you very much, Adriano. It was, again, it's a great morning to have a chance to talk to you and talk about what is it to be a spiritist. And we're going to go into we're going to finalize our show now. And again, thank you very much for being here with us today. And I hope we have another chance to talk more about this and many other questions.
Thank you, too.
So, dear listeners, now that we're coming to the end of our show, we want you to think that as a sower, in the parable of the sower, we need to use our gifts. You need to use the gifts from God that are seated inside our hearts, taking care of them, allowing the soil of our existences to be receptive to the words of God, allowing ourselves to be better, allowing ourselves to be helped, being a spiritist, but ultimately being a moral person as described in the Gospels, because this is what it is to be a spiritist, achieving moral evolution, not only intellectual, because they have to go by hand in hand. And the knowledge is not for you, but for rather everyone from the creation. And at this moment, we would like to thank our Mother, Father God, for the opportunity we had of being here this morning. All the beloved spirits and incarnate beings that are here with us. And may we all continue this journey, independently of our faiths, independently of where we live and what we do. Live by the very first and basic principle of the universe, which is love one another and love God above all. Because in that way, independently of what you believe and what you do in your lives, you are following the great plan that God has created for all of us. And by definition, you are a spiritist because you believe in the basic seeds of the sower God. Dear listeners, it was again a great honor to be here with you at Kardec Radio this morning. And I would like to tell you that we have very exciting shows coming ahead of us. Next week, we're going to have, again, me, myself, Dr. Marco Magalhães, and Dr. Vanessa Anceloni talking about the new book, Sex and Destiny by André Luiz and Chico Xavier. And that's going to tell us a story about these two families. That is a big, big wake-up call for all of us, misusing our sexual energies. Wow, yeah, that's very interesting, my friends, and I really want you guys to follow us next week, because we're going to be talking about this eye-opening book by André Luiz. And then on August 30th, we have the program Obsession in the Spiritist Movement. And now for every one of us, that's so important. Now that we know what is it to be a spiritist, now we got to know, too, the responsibilities that come in hand with it. Because being a spiritist is not, like Marcos D. Clay said, putting on a T-shirt saying that I'm spiritist, but rather understanding the knowledge and the responsibilities that come with it and the effort that we have to do to change ourselves. So, dear listeners, I hope you have a great weekend and a great week, and God bless you all, and we'll be here with you again next week with Dr. Vanessa Anceloni coming back to the program. Thank you very much, my friends, and so be it.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.